As we confront the specter of a nuclear holocaust, we are forced to peer into the abyss of humanity's darkest potential. The mere contemplation of such a cataclysmic event evokes a profound sense of dread, underscoring the urgent need for vigilance and global cooperation in safeguarding against the horrors of nuclear war. In this comprehensive exploration, we delve deeply into 10 potential outcomes of a nuclear holocaust, unraveling the complex tapestry of devastation and despair that would ensue in its wake. Through this sobering examination, we hope to underscore the imperative of prioritizing peace, diplomacy, and nuclear disarmament in our collective pursuit of a safer and more secure world. Widespread destruction. The detonation of nuclear weapons heralds a torrent of devastation, laying waste to cities, towns, and infrastructure within the blast radius. The force of the explosions would obliterate buildings, bridges, and roads, leaving behind a landscape of smoldering ruins and twisted metal. The impact of nuclear detonations would extend far beyond the initial blast radius, causing secondary fires, shockwaves, and structural collapse in surrounding areas. The sheer magnitude of destruction would be incomprehensible, with entire urban centers reduced to ash in a matter of seconds. The psychological toll of witnessing such wanton destruction would be profound, leaving survivors traumatized and shell-shocked in the wake of unimaginable devastation. Massive loss of life. The toll on human life would be staggering, with millions perishing in the inferno of nuclear explosions. Those caught in the blast radius would be instantly vaporized or incinerated, their bodies reduced to charred remnants amidst the devastation. Beyond the immediate casualties, the lingering effects of radiation exposure would claim countless more lives in the days, weeks, and months following the initial detonations. Radiation sickness, characterized by nausea, vomiting, and hair loss, would afflict survivors exposed to high levels of nuclear fallout. The scale of human suffering would be unfathomable, with families torn apart, communities decimated, and the very fabric of society rent asunder by the horrors of nuclear war. Environmental catastrophe. The aftermath of a nuclear holocaust would precipitate an environmental catastrophe of unparalleled proportions. Radioactive fallout would contaminate the air, soil, and water, rendering vast swaths of land uninhabitable for generations to come. The long-term ecological impact of nuclear war would be devastating, with widespread deforestation, soil erosion, and biodiversity loss exacerbating the already dire consequences of radioactive contamination. The delicate balance of ecosystems would be irreparably disrupted, leading to the collapse of food chains, the extinction of species, and the degradation of once thriving habitats. The scars of nuclear conflict would linger on the planet long after the fires of war have been extinguished. Nuclear winter. The release of soot and debris into the atmosphere would trigger a catastrophic cooling effect known as nuclear winter. Sunlight would be obscured by a thick shroud of smoke and ash, plunging the planet into a perpetual twilight and disrupting global climate patterns. The onset of nuclear winter would herald a prolonged period of darkness, cold, and agricultural failure, with crop yields plummeting and food shortages reaching catastrophic levels. The specter of famine and starvation would loom large, exacerbating the already dire humanitarian crisis unfolding in the wake of nuclear war. The consequences of nuclear winter would be felt far and wide, with ecosystems ravaged, economies decimated, and the very survival of humanity hanging in the balance amidst the frozen wasteland of a world plunged into darkness. Societal collapse. The fabric of society would unravel in the aftermath of nuclear devastation, giving rise to widespread chaos, lawlessness, and societal breakdown. Governments would falter under the weight of overwhelming crises, leaving populations to fend for themselves amidst the chaos and uncertainty. The breakdown of social order would be swift and merciless, as the thin veneer of civilization is stripped away to reveal the primal instincts lurking beneath. Desperate survivors would resort to violence, looting, and scavenging in a bid to eke out an existence in the harsh and unforgiving landscape of a world ravaged by nuclear war. The rule of law would give way to the law of the jungle as communities fracture along ethnic, religious, and ideological lines, further exacerbating tensions and fueling conflict in the post-apocalyptic wasteland. Resource scarcity. Access to essential resources such as food, water, and medical supplies would become increasingly scarce in the aftermath of nuclear conflict. Agricultural regions would be decimated by the effects of radiation and environmental degradation, leading to widespread crop failure and food shortages. Water sources would be contaminated by radioactive fallout, rendering them unfit for human consumption and exacerbating the already dire humanitarian crisis unfolding in the wake of nuclear war. Access to clean drinking water would become a matter of life and death, with millions facing the prospect of dehydration, malnutrition, and disease in the absence of adequate supplies. Medical infrastructure would be overwhelmed by the sheer scale of human suffering, leaving many to perish without access to life-saving treatment or basic healthcare services. The specter of disease and epidemics would loom large, further compounding the already dire consequences of nuclear war on human health and well-being. Economic devastation. The global economy would be plunged into chaos in the aftermath of nuclear conflict, as financial markets implode and trade routes are severed by the ravages of war. Currencies would become worthless, commodities would lose their value, and the very foundations of the capitalist system would be shaken to their core. The concept of wealth itself would be rendered meaningless amidst the wreckage of a world brought to its knees by the horrors of nuclear war. The pursuit of profit and economic gain would pale in comparison to the struggle for survival in a barren and unforgiving landscape bereft of hope or opportunity. The collapse of the global economy would have far-reaching implications for every facet of human society, from employment and education to healthcare and social welfare. The fabric of civilization would unravel as the edifice of capitalism crumbles beneath the weight of its own contradictions, leaving millions to fend for themselves in a world ravaged by nuclear conflict. Health crisis. In the aftermath of nuclear conflict, survivors would grapple with a myriad of health crises, from radiation-induced illnesses to malnutrition and epidemic disease. Medical infrastructure would be overwhelmed by the sheer scale of human suffering, leaving untold numbers to suffer and perish without access to life-saving treatment or basic healthcare services. The psychological toll of nuclear war would be profound, with survivors haunted by the memories of the horrors they have witnessed and the loved ones they have lost. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, would be rampant, as individuals struggle to come to terms with the enormity of the tragedy that has befallen them and their world. Mental health services would be stretched to breaking point, as counselors, therapists, and healthcare workers strive to provide support and assistance to those grappling with the trauma of nuclear war. The scars of conflict would run deep, leaving an indelible mark on the collective psyche of humanity for generations to come. Refugee displacement. As the fires of nuclear war consume their homes and communities, millions would be forced to flee in search of sanctuary and solace. Refugee camps would swell to bursting point, straining humanitarian resources to their breaking point and exacerbating tensions between host nations and displaced populations. The plight of refugees would be compounded by the specter of discrimination, xenophobia, escalation of conflicts. The use of nuclear weapons would set in motion a dangerous spiral of retaliation and revenge, as rival powers seek to settle scores amidst the ashes of their former glory. The threat of nuclear annihilation would hang like a sword of Damocles over the heads of humanity, as nations teeter on the brink of all-out war in a desperate bid to secure their survival and sovereignty. If you found this exploration of the potential aftermath of a nuclear holocaust enlightening, we urge you to subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content. By sharing this video and raising awareness about the urgent need for nuclear disarmament and peace-building efforts together, we can strive towards a future where the specter of nuclear annihilation is but a distant memory. Thank you for watching.